essential principles of peace. Through this, we can attain the confidence that indeed sustainable peace is attainable. And as youth leaders, you can do your part to realize this dream of peace. Handa na ba kayo? I would like to start by sharing to you an interesting story. It is a story about a father and his 5-year-old son. It was a typical Saturday morning, and this young boy wanted to play with his father. He said, "Daddy, can we play?" So his dad, who was busy preparing for a report that he needs to submit by Monday morning, answered, "Sorry, my son, not now. I am busy." The boy insisted, "Dad, please let us play." At that point, the father noticed a world map and a scissor on top of his table. "Okay, I have a great idea." So he cut the map into several pieces and gave it to his son. "Hey son, this is the game." "What is the game, Dad?" his son said excitedly. "Oh, this game is called Jigsaw Puzzle. Just put the pieces back together correctly, bond them with a tape, and when you're done, show it to me, and we will play another game." His son was so happy, and he said, "Okay," and went to one corner of the room. His dad was murmuring, "Finally, my son will not disturb me anymore." However, after 5 minutes, the boy went back to his daddy. "Look, Dad, I did it." His father cannot believe what he saw. Still shocked, he asked his son, "Since when did you learn about geography?" "What? Geography, Dad?" So his dad asked his son, "How did you do it?" His son answered, "I just put together the picture of the karate master at the back of the map. When the man became whole again, the world got together as well. Nang mabuo ang tao, naayos din ang mundo." So if we are to solve the problems of our nation and solve the problems of the world, let us first solve the problem in ourselves, in us, human beings. So most of you, our young participants, probably belong to the Generation Z. Z as in Zoom. Before the age of Bluetooth, augmented reality, artificial intelligence, and robotics was the age of many scientific breakthroughs in the 20th century. The 20th century was an important century in the history of sciences and technology. From space exploration, microwave, satellites, automobiles, airplanes, submarines, from television to personal computers, X-rays, we have seen the best of men in the 20th century. However, we also have seen the worst in man, from massive poverty and hunger to drug addiction, moral degradation, and destruction of the families, religious and ethnic wars to wars among nations, pollution, climate change, racial discrimination, terrorism. The question is, what went wrong? Anyari. But despite all these critical challenges of our times, we all long for true and lasting peace, right? So we long to live in a peaceful place, not the peace in cemeteries where everyone there is lying peacefully, but the peace that ends all conflicts. So how are we going to realize our dream of peace? Before 1903, we could not fly. Why? Without the principles, we could not fly. Only until the Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur, known as the fathers of modern aviation, after applying successfully the principles of aerodynamics, they could build and fly the world's first successful motor-operated airplane. So we dream of flying. Yes, we see birds fly in the sky, but that's not enough. In order to fly, we needed to understand and apply the principles of what? Aerodynamics. So also, we all dream of peace. Yes, we could feel peace when we are with nature. But are this enough? No. That is why, in order to realize our dream of peace, what do we need? We need to understand and apply the principles of peace. As Lao Tzu said, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. But even though we make the first step, but we are going towards the opposite or wrong direction, we can never reach our desired destination. That is why making the right first step in the right direction is of paramount importance. I am sure that when we think about wars, we often think about soldiers, weapons, and firepower. However, as UNESCO pointed out, there is another war that we are experiencing. This is the war in our mind. In the preamble of UNESCO's constitution, we can read, "Since wars begins in the minds of men, it is in the minds of men that defenses of peace must be constructed." That is why we are here to learn these fundamental principles of peace building and nation building. In this presentation, you will understand why these 5 universal principles of peace are so fundamental yet oftentimes neglected. The universal principles are applicable everywhere, in whatever field of life, and to all people of all different ages, culture, and nationality. These principles are applicable in the past, in the present, and in the future. So the fundamental goal of Universal Peace Federation and YSP and the lifelong mission of our founders, Dr. Sun Myung Moon and Dr. Hak Ja Han Moon, is to realize true and sustainable peace in the society. And they have laid out these 5 basic principles for realizing a peaceful world. So let us talk peace. P stands for parent. So the first universal principle of peace is that God is the parent of humankind and we are one human family. So the first principle relates to our proper understanding of God, our Creator, and our relationship to Him as human beings. So let us understand more about this principle with this illustration. So when we look at God, the Creator, well, it's basically the same. Because of, various languages and traditions and perceptions, we can call the Creator in many names, like God, no? Jehovah, or Allah, Tao, Yahweh, El Shaddai, divine law, ultimate reality, or Dios, Bathala, Apo, Ginoo. Yes, we can call God with many names, but there is only one Creator. Again, we have to understand that the character or the nature of God is more important than the names. So, and this is actually very important to understand because God is the parent of all mankind. That means that we are what? Brothers and sisters. We may worship God or the Supreme Being in unique ways, having different traditions and practices, but at the essence is that we are one family under one common parent. So what is important about this principle is that it brings humanity closer to each other. So we can relate to each other as a family, regardless of the color of our skin, or our language, or our nationality, or our religion, right? So this is the very reason that there are many values in the world that are applicable everywhere. As people with common origin, a common parent, we have inherent values that make us relate to each other in a common way. And these are what we call universal principles. That is why wherever you are in the world, there are certain values that are equally important to all people, like the values of compassion or kindness, peace, justice, righteousness, honesty, friendship, responsibility, truth, and true love. So the question is, there are people who deny the existence of God. There are people whose mantra is to see is to believe. Are you one of these people? There are many things in life that we cannot see, yet you believe that they exist. Just like air. You don't see air, but you can feel and sense it. So how can we perceive God who is invisible? Easy. You can perceive God's nature in the creation. And we can read this in the Bible. Ever since the creation of the world, His invisible nature, namely His eternal power and deity, has been clearly perceived in the things that have been made. So, let us understand further in this context. Okay, so I have a body which is visible, and I have also mind that is invisible, right? So how about you? Okay, you touch yourself to check if you have body. Okay, I presume that everyone has a body, no problem. Because you can see it, you can touch it, and even you can smell it. But the next question is, do you have mind? Yes? Are you sure? So, the mind is invisible and body is visible. And this is interesting. You can actually perceive your mind or the minds of other people through their actuations. Something that you can observe, like, the facial expression or the language or behavior. It is the same with perceiving, the nature of an artist by just looking at the style of his painting. In the same manner, we can also observe the nature of the created world. When you observe the created world, you can perceive the nature of God. So when we observe the created world, we can understand that there is a principle that applies to all. That all created beings have what we call dual characteristics. So first of all created beings have what we call internal nature and external form. When you look at man, we have mind and body, right? So how about animals? They have instinct and body. Plants have response system or mechanism and body. Have you heard about sunflowers? They always follow where the sun is. Some kind of an affinity to the sun. How about molecules? Well, they also follow the natural law, and they have atoms. Atoms and particles are also the same. They have internal nature and external form. So another dual characteristics is what we call having masculine and feminine aspect, like man and woman. Animals are either male or female. How about plants? Plants have male and female parts, like, stamen and pistil. Molecules also have cation, which is positively charged, and anion, which is negatively charged. Atoms have protons and electrons. Particles have positive and negative. So what is our conclusion? Our conclusion is that, yes, we can perceive God's nature in all the things that were created, which all exist based on the dual characteristics. Everything has an internal nature and external form, and that everything has both masculine and feminine aspects. Based on this first universal principle, we can surmise about the fallacy of Marxism that negates the existence of an eternal and changing principle or God. And we affirm the very existence of an eternal, unchanging, and universal principle or